for the first creative space on video of 2026. God, I still need to get used to saying that. I have Anderson Edghill, a documentary filmmaker. We're going to talk about one of his best, in my opinion, documentaries, because rewatched it recently, but also documentary filmmaking in general, and who we think should be winning Best Documentary at the Academy Awards this year. It doesn't matter that I've only seen the one. I think that one should win. So welcome, Anderson. So, just in a brief synopsis of your background, I know you studied filmmaking. Tell us a little, and you've done three short films, I believe, two of which have featured at the Trinidad Film Festival. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I got started in media, I think maybe about some early 2000s as a radio announcer and journalist in radio. And then I transitioned over into television. But all along that journey, I've always had a love and interest in video production, which blossomed really into storytelling, particularly in the medium of film. And I want to give special recognition to Dr. Noel Howell because he has been around Antigua and Barbuda, encouraging young people, encouraging not just young people, but just sort of working towards building a film festival for many years and building a film industry rather for many years. At one point, we would have had the Antigua and Barbuda International Film Festival. I think perhaps somewhere in the early 2000s to mid, maybe around 2010. So forgive me if the dates don't mark correctly. But he has been one of the forefront figures thrusting that forward. And what I like about what he did is that he used to host this film academy, and Antigua and Barbuda Academy, which was sort of like a boot camp in the summer to get young people interested in the whole idea of filmmaking and exposed to different
I'm
aspects
very,
of filmmaking.
I'm very familiar with the Film Academy. I've been a facilitator for the storytelling
Excellent.
part of it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that really gave me the exposure and really catapulted my interest in filmmaking and understanding what filmmaking is and how it distinguishes itself from just video production and videography, right? So having been exposed to that, making short films, different projects for Dr. Howell, and getting involved in, for example, when they were outside productions coming on island serving as a PA and that sort of stuff. Then I said, no, this is something that I really, really love. And so I was working at ABS television at the time as a news reporter, as a journalist, pretty much everything really, and as a producer. And I said, no, I really want to dive deeper into specifically film. I love media, but storytelling, writing scripts and seeing those come into fruition on the screen, that's something that really just excited me. So I went off to Trinidad at the film school there, the University of the West Indies film program, and I did a degree in film production, a specialization in film production. And it was an incredible and amazing experience. I'm not so sure how many people from Antigua would have taken up that program. To my best understanding, I think probably maybe I'm the only one who would have done that program in Trinidad and Tobago. But that was an incredible experience collaborating with other filmmakers from across the region, Jamaica, Trinidad, St. Lucia, and just sort of building out ways to articulate Caribbean stories and developing almost a Caribbean aesthetic. That's a conversation that we had during that time at film school, and then I came back to Antigua and started working on different little projects. I really haven't um, really produced to the extent that I think that I should be producing, having been back here since 2015. All right, I worked on a few
Well, I
small projects.
mean, in your defense,
Mhm.
filmmaking is an expensive enterprise. I've
Oh
worked on a
my
couple of
God.
films myself independently. Sweetest Mango and No Seed.
Yeah.
I was associate producer on one, production manager on the other, with only my media background, because by then I'd worked in print and television, radio, and so on, but no film um, credits to my name, really, in terms of
Okay. Uh-huh.
study and all of that. But it was,
Yeah.
I mean, for all of us, it was experimental.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned is that I mean, and back then you were talking to when, people when cell phones and all that to kind of cut
Hmm.
the cost wasn't really an option, but because this was
Yeah.
the early 2000s, late 1990s. Um, so yeah, it's an expensive enterprise.
Oh
Anybody
my
who
God.
undertakes a film and gets it off the ground, I mean, they've lifted a huge, huge, huge rock because it's very pricey before, during, and after, and you're not sure that it's going to pay off. So I'm not surprised that you haven't done a narrative film as yet, but don't
Hmm.
sell yourself short. You've done some good work. And notably, the one we're going to talk about today is the Dr. Prince Ramsey documentary. I saw the short film, one of the short films as well. Loved it. Loved it.
Okay.
Loved the tone of it. Loved the like you said, it's about kind of figuring out what is the Caribbean aesthetic in an underdeveloped industry. We've had some great Caribbean films, but we don't have an industry really. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're
Yeah.
talking outside of, say, Jamaica and Trinidad, and even they arguably would say, but at least they have film commissions, they have things that are in place to try to build an industry. We don't even have
Yeah.
that here. So,
Yeah.
well, we have, that's not true. We have, what's it called? We have
You
a
have a film
commissioner.
commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're doing something. But anyway, to the point, you did the Dr. Prince Ramsey documentary. There's only one other documentary I can think of in that vein of the valuable work of
Hmm.
putting down who we are by
Yeah.
telling somebody's story. And that's the one on Short Shirt. Do you remember the director's name? He's a doctor. He actually went away and studied film to come back and do that documentary, Making of the Monarch. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Used a
Okay.
lot of
Mhm.
raw footage and it's really well done. It actually screened at UWI as well, as I remember. So between those two, those are the two that I would hold up as these are stories being told, well researched, a very a narrative through line, thematic arcs, and just because the takeaway from the Dr. Ramsey story is his passion for Calypso, even being a
Yeah.
medical doctor, and the
Yeah.
way he ties the two together. The
Hmm.
and in doing so, especially touching on Calypso Gold, those early 80s
Yeah.
albums that he did, boosting the voices of artists, and in so doing, boosting the art form.
Hmm.
Um, just getting all those people on camera to tell his story and to connect those dots. Tell me about one, how you got that finance, two, how you decided to approach it, and how you feel about how it turned out.
Okay, great. So, in terms of the finance for doing that project, so at that time I was working at the national broadcast, ABS. So I didn't have the stress of running around and building the business side of that particular project. So a lot of the resources and so on were readily available through that end. So and I'm
However,
incredibly
stick a
thankful for
pin,
that.
sorry, stick a
Yeah.
pin. Having worked at ABS myself for your time, I know that, yeah, the resources are there. Doesn't mean you can get the project off the ground
You
because you
know.
come with an idea. I've come with ideas when I was there. It's like, ah. So
Yeah.
I know that it's not, yeah, you might be in-house, you have the equipment and all that there. You have people who can do camera work and editing and so on. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. So don't sell
Yeah.
yourself short in actually getting it off the ground simply because you didn't have to go around cap in hand to get backers.
Yeah, and that is true. That is true. But yeah, so I did have to, pull some extra strings here and there. And some of it, in fact, a good bit of it, I had to contribute some of my own technical resources and equipment as well to really give it that look that we wanted the documentary to have a modern look to some extent. Yeah, so that was a little feat in and of it in and of itself.
Yeah, it's
So
very visually, it's very it's good, it's beautiful to look at. Even though
yeah,
it's talking heads, the way it's shot and maybe the way it's colored in terms of whatever you did in post, it looks
correct. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I knew how I wanted it to look as well, right? So not just because it's something that was, coming from Antigua and Barbuda, coming through the state media, that it wouldn't have a competitive look, right? So I really try to work as hard as possible from that perspective. But pulling the whole thing together, I think I really enjoyed working with Dr. Ramsey. We had a lot of conversations about his work in calypso music, and I was really opened up to a lot of things that I didn't have a lot of knowledge about, right? So when he started talking about some of the projects that he would have produced, the music projects, as you mentioned, with Dadley Gold and with Dadley Diamond, I got excited. I really got excited.
You know what's
And I
wild
actually,
is, I remember those songs because I was a child when like Chalice and all those songs that were on those.
yeah,
I didn't have
Reading,
a sense. I didn't have a sense that those albums existed. I just knew that we were hearing these other voices
okay,
come through at a time when Short Shirt, Swallow, and Absent were very dominant. So he actually made
yeah,
space for voices who might not have had the resources to produce whole albums. But as a
yes,
child,
yeah.
it was just good new music. I mean, Nightmare Party. I think I
Mm-hmm.
was on one of those. I mean, so it was really it was making space for new voices. So yeah.
Yeah. And it was refreshing because I didn't grow up hearing being exposed to that music. Perhaps because I
Very
believe
young.
I'm younger than you.
Very young. What are
Yeah.
you, a millennial? Get out of here.
So when I heard it for the first time, and interestingly, I was able to get a hold of the original vinyl records, right?
Mm,
By
mm.
talking with people such as Kenny Nibs and so on, and other folks who were working at ABS, they were able to dig through some piles and in some cases some rubble. And I actually recovered the vinyl records, and I don't remember how I was able to, but I got a record player as well too, right? I don't remember how I got it, and I remember having it home trying to figure out how do I get this thing to work? How do I set it up?
I don't know.
Right?
I'm from the cassette tape era, so I don't ask me about vinyl.
Wow. So when I got it set up and I was able to, you know, connect it to my laptop so that I could capture the music straight off of the vinyl, right? And you know that it has a particular feel and warmness. You will hear the music purists talk about it, listening to something on vinyl as opposed to CD or any other digital media. So I actually had the privilege and the benefit of listening to those original records with the jackets and going through the jackets and all the extra information, the photos, the information about the songs, producers, and I remember just sitting there in the middle of the night, listening to all the, as you mentioned, Nightmare Party, some different stuff from Reading, Chalice. I said, this is beautiful music, and look, I don't think I had an appreciation for calypso music before, as I did, having been exposed to that whole catalog of music that I discovered by doing this film on Dr. Ramsey and his contribution to that art form.
Speaking of his contribution, something that shouldn't be lost in the sauce that several of them spoke to is his pen, because he's not just the money.
Yeah,
He writes and he has a good sense of what would be a hit and what can win on the stage, which he did for
yeah,
artists like Onion from Burning Flames, which he did. I mean, perhaps his magnum opus would be Zero, the AIDS song. That
yeah.
song has such a poignancy to it, and he won the crown with that. So Dr. Ramsey is not to be slept on. He even worked with Obstinate,
Oh
who
yeah,
had a good pen himself, right?
yeah.
And they collaborated well. So to me, that was one of the things that the documentary pulled out very effectively.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, did you have a sense? Okay, so we're talking about how you got it together, but did you have a sense of how you're going to tie it together narratively, or were you just searching when you started?
Initially, I was searching. I was, trying to find that story, speak to as many of the people that he interacted with musically, and then after doing that, doing all those research interviews, which a lot of it was to some extent, then I began to pull out certain themes, right? And I sort of organized it that way. His contributions to writing, his contributions as a producer, right? So we look at it almost in different chapters. What inspired his interest and his love for calypso music, which we cover in the earlier part, right? So I sort of organized it around that, having gone through all the different interviews, and I put it together in that way so that it becomes a whole journey. And what I like about it is it's so much about the music. So there's always a musical track
Yeah.
right throughout the film, a musical
Well,
track.
it helps. It helps. Speaking of production, it helps that you have the rights holder right there, so you don't have to worry
Yeah,
about the cost of adding music to your documentary. It's like, oh, you want
correct.
to use that? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted people to not only hear about the work that he did, I wanted them to experience it similarly. So that's what it does. The music carries you right through the film, right through everything. So it almost becomes as a character in the documentary itself. And I'm really proud of how it turned out. And even there's some visuals in between some of the interviews of the vinyl records spinning as the music plays. So I thought that was important to really take people back into that space, into that era, when calypso music was at its peak, if you want to consider it that
Yeah.
way. Not to say that it isn't doing well now, but it's one of the most celebrated times of calypso music, having spoken to a lot of the players in that era.
Yeah, but what's interesting about it though is that the documentary shows him operating in different eras and with artists from different eras. I mean, um, the guys from you're talking about the guys from when I was a child
Mhm.
to making Onion in the 90s when I would
Mhm.
have been a young adult, one of the um, elites of Antigua and Calypso,
Oh, yes, yeah.
right? Because he's a kingmaker, because you're talking about a hat trick, right?
Mhm.
Which Short Shirt has pulled off. Like it's a rare thing. It's a rare thing that he did. And so I take it from what you just said that you're happy with how it turned out.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
my third question, yeah. Um, were you happy with how it turned out in terms, because here's the other thing, at the back end of producing something, especially in the world of film, is then you have to talk about distribution and marketing. I mean, obviously you can view it online on YouTube
Yeah.
now, which is how I saw it, but did it go to film festivals? Did you submit it to, because here's my thing, my dream for our film community is someday I'm going to see us. Well, the Golden Globes were held recently, Oscars are coming up. Best documentary film, best international film, somebody from the Caribbean,
Yeah.
because we have the talent and we're producing the films, but whatever it is that needs to be that bridge to those spaces, we haven't quite got there yet. Decades after producing out of the region a film like The Harder They Come. So are you happy with what you were able to do with it post production? And what more do we need to do to get the films that we produce into the wider world?
So I'm happy with how it turned out, but I had some additional plans for it, but because of time constraints, because when I was working, and of course everybody else who contributed in that crew, when I was working on that project, I remember we had a particular timeline that we were working towards. I don't necessarily remember what it was. May have been his birthday, Oh, but there was a time constraint that we were working
Okay.
towards because I initially wanted it to be a little longer. My target was about 90 minutes,
How long is
right?
it?
It's about an hour, a little over an hour, maybe an hour and
Oh,
3 minutes.
okay. So it doesn't even meet the mark for like a
Yeah,
feature film.
for
Yeah.
feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did want to meet that feature category and
Hmm.
to film festivals and so on. So as a television documentary, I'm satisfied with how it turned out. But again, I initially had bigger plans.
That's a weird thing, though. It's too long to be a documentary short, and it's too long to be a documentary feature. It's really just
Yeah,
made for television.
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Right?
Yeah.
Because I had envisioned a cinematic, even a local cinematic release for the
Yeah.
project because of the nature of it and the scale and who we're speaking about, Dr. Prince Ramsey. So I thought it was something that would have warranted a cinematic release. But again, because of those other constraints, I wasn't able to make the project as long as I wanted to and add in some other elements that I would have liked to cover as well. So
Yeah.
they would have been I would have liked to have introduced some semi-scripted scenes as
Hmm.
well. Yeah,
Some reenactments and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
those,
Yeah.
those
That would have
were
been you could have, yeah, that would have been
mm,
um that's some History Channel stuff. They
yeah,
grab what they can and they create
yeah,
create the rest. And yeah, it
yeah,
makes the storytelling that almost like a creative essay. You're in that
exactly.
space where you're entertaining the people who are interested in the subject, but you're
Mm,
also um feeding I'm going to say the academic qualities of a subject
correct.
film like that, but also making it entertainment. Yeah,
Yes,
cool.
correct. Yeah,
So
that's where
what would you be doing? Well, obviously that film is in the rear view. What's ahead?
what's ahead? What's ahead? Well, I love documentary filmmaking, but I think what I love a little more is fiction narratives.
Okay.
So as much as, in fact, when I was in school, one of my lecturers would often say that many of us, as much as we love fiction, because of the region that we live in, we're more likely to become documentary filmmakers. And I understand why she would have said that. Um, it's probably a little easier given our limitations and constraints and the fact that we don't have a quote unquote film industry like other regions have. You probably stand a better chance at um, at persuading funders to support a documentary project that has perhaps historical and deep cultural value, as opposed to getting them persuaded or to see the value of a fiction narrative, right?
The thing is,
So
it takes. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
I was going to say it takes so much because you need tax incentives, you need grant funding, which we have limited supply in the region, and you
Yeah,
need backers who are going to look for profit motivation for supporting a film, which often when a film goes to like who was I watching the other day? They were saying they went around, around, around. This is in the US. And the film went on and was nominated. It was a short film, I think, was nominated for an Academy Award. They couldn't find any backers, ended up having to put in their own money. And then, of course,
mm,
once the film hits the award circuit and is doing well, the backer comes back and it's like, okay, we want to.
yep,
And they're scratching their head thinking, you could have this film for $150,000. Now you're going to have to pay me millions. Like,
yeah,
it's also that thing of dreaming and taking a chance on something that is intangible as well,
yeah,
which might speak to our how we see the world as well. And when you're
yeah,
saying speaking just now, something that resonated with me is that I always knew that I wanted to write, but I
mhm,
had no models for what that would look like. And
yeah,
so I grew up and went into media.
Mm.
Not because, I mean, obviously, I do have a very curious mind, and I am a news junkie to a degree, not so much anymore because the news sucks, but but this idea that okay, so creative writing, make a life of that. It was like, and pay your bills how? That's kind of our mindset. The country,
Yeah.
and you have to. I've had over my lifetime had to try to figure out how to balance that out without giving up on the dream. And it sounds like the journey was similar for you, although you were already ensconced in media before you decided to explore
Yeah.
the creative side a bit more. Um, So yeah, I don't know. It was just that just resonated with me. But we're also going to talk film. We're here because it's award season, so we're here to talk about film as well.
Mm.
What's your favorite? I know you said you prefer narrative film, and you're going to talk about what's your next project's going to be. But what's your favorite film of the past year? Like which film should be in the conversation for Best Picture, and also Best Documentary Film, since we're talking documentaries. Do you want me to
Favorite,
start? Because I
um,
have.
that's a tricky one because I haven't really been deeply engaged in the viewing of modern and very
Not
recent.
good. See, writers have to read and filmmakers have
Yeah.
to watch films.
That is true. But look, I watched so many films when I was in film school. I think my reservoir of and range and scope of different types of films from different regions and different subject matters and everything is full, right? But not to capacity. And I mean, I do accept again, yeah, you have to stay current. You have
Fair,
to.
you're a busy man. That's fair. That's fair. So you don't have one.
No, I don't have
Okay.
one.
Okay, so I'm going to go on the record and say Sinners should win Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. And if it doesn't, then you're all lying. You're all lying on that film. That film should win everything. That movie, I went to see that twice in the theater, which I don't do. And it
Uh-huh.
was, there's a scene in that, if you haven't seen it yet, you should have seen it in the theater though, but there's a scene in that where I literally felt like I was flying. And I've
Wow.
never experienced that in the theater before. And then I haven't seen a lot of documentaries, but the one documentary I saw that stuck with me was The Perfect Neighbor, which
Mhm.
was told entirely using cams. So there's no narration at all. It's about an incident that happened that ended up in a woman's death because of ongoing dispute with her neighbor. But it's all told through cameras, whether it's phone
Wow.
cameras or traffic cams or police cams or whatever. And I just thought it was really, really well done.
Wow.
So those are my two. Those are my two. But we will end with what next people can expect from you. And I also want you to give at least one tip to future filmmakers, documentary or otherwise. And if you don't have a project that you want to discuss, that's fine. But if you want to have a dream that you want to share either for yourself or the industry, then you can do that as well.
Yeah, so what next? What I've set on my agenda is to produce at least two short films in 2026. All right. So I had that on my list of New Year's resolutions. And interestingly, that came about because I was going through my Google Drive and I was like, man, I have so many finished scripts, so many short scripts, so many half unfinished scripts. Some of them have been sitting on the Google Drive for over 10 years. And I told myself, look, you have to do something about this. Every year you keep making excuses. And some of them are valid excuses because family got in the way, work got in the way. So I haven't had as much time as I would like to make available to doing these creative projects. So, and even again, consuming film. That's why I don't have a best film for the last year or so on because a lot of things, life gets in the way, right?
Hmm.
But I
Oh, I
think
know.
I think I'm approaching a stage in my life right now where I can begin to perhaps put more attention, more effort, and more resources back into that love that I have developed for film over the years. So going into 2026, up to this weekend gone, I was going through different scripts and finalizing, okay, which project do I feel most connected to, which project at this stage in my life, even though I wrote some of these scripts maybe over 10 years ago, which is resonating with me, which do I feel a move and a calling towards producing, or do I need to write something else?
Mm.
That was the struggle for me just this past weekend gone,
Okay. Okay.
deciding.
So I'm hitting you up at the right time when you think you're putting your feedback in. That's cool.
Yeah,
Excellent, excellent. Well, let me know when you're ready to grow up so we can talk. Because I mean,
absolutely.
you're gonna need collaborators. And the thing is, I totally relate to having so many things on your hard drive that you want to do. Include, I
Yeah.
mean, because I'm somebody as well. I mean, people might know me for media and for writing stories and books, but I write a lot of other things, and I've written plays and screenplays as well. So
And
um, I haven't produced anything yet, so it might be good to get on a crew and get my feet wet again. So,
yeah,
yeah.
certainly. Certainly.
What's a tip that you have for anyone looking to get into the field, especially considering all the limitations that you're
Mhm.
aware of in our environment? Oh, I was going to say one Caribbean documentary that I really liked because I want to mention Caribbean film as well. Have you ever seen Fire in Babylon?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the one. I thought that's another one that did it really well. You don't have to be a cricket fan to
Mhm.
feel that fire that film ignites in you as a Caribbean person. So that's just another example for me of how whether it's documentary filmmaking or narrative filmmaking or the hybrid of it that we've been talking about, where you can capture people's imagination and
Mhm.
educate them and entertain them and also stoke something in them. I feel like we need that in these times of extreme confusion about what's going on in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Confusion and fear about what's going on in the world. Confusion, fear, and anger. What's going
Oh,
on?
oh yeah. And I
Um,
think maybe perhaps we need for even for Caribbean audiences, I don't know how accessible these Caribbean and regional films are because even some of the classics, a lot of people in our market have never been exposed to them, right? I know, and I love the work that Hammer is doing. I know recently they've been collaborating with Julie's and running some of those
yeah,
old
yeah. Mhm.
classics, Caribbean films, right? So I think more people need to be exposed to them, and I think we need to, make it more accessible for people to be exposed, make these Caribbean films more accessible to ordinary audiences. Because sometimes I imagine if I hadn't gone to film school, some of this material I
Would
would not
never,
have
yeah.
exposed to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said you've seen so many films. I mean, if you were here working or even going to school and studying something else, that wouldn't have
Yeah,
happened.
it would have been totally outside of my realm of exposure.
Yeah. All right. So you'll keep us informed in terms of when you're ready to go. So maybe the people who are listening to this, students who want to apprentice or intern on a film set who
Yeah.
can get some experience. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
Final thoughts. I just want to say that my desire and part of my aim, my passion, is to see Antigua and Barbuda, OECS countries. I want to see us becoming a film producing region, a prolific film producing region. I think we have all sorts of incredible stories all around us that need to be told and that audiences can find tremendous value in. I think it's important that we see ourselves on the screen because there's a cultural dominance in the international film market, so much so that when we see our local films, we measure them up against a
Unfairly,
Hollywood.
unfairly. You're talking apples
Yeah,
and oranges in terms of budgets.
exactly. So we,
Mm.
we need to understand our thing is our thing, and our films are going to have a particular aesthetic, whether that be because of technical limitations or other limitations. It doesn't matter. Because if you look at, take for example, there are films from Africa. They have an aesthetic, right? And we appreciate them for what they are. Not necessarily talking about Nollywood, but Nollywood does have a particular aesthetic. Nollywood has a particular aesthetic as well. And the Caribbean region, we will have a particular aesthetic. And we need to embrace it. And we need to stop, trying our endeavor best to replicate something else, right? So our films are our films, and we can be proud of it, just like other regions are proud of the content that they produce.
Yeah,
So I,
as long as we understand that aesthetic doesn't mean gloss in the sense that
yeah,
um what we're talking about, what I'm thinking, and I think what you also mean is now we're not talking about compromising on production values in
no,
terms
no,
of
no.
not changing the story, in terms of creating something that doesn't feel coherent and real and all of that. But just that
Yeah,
we won't. It's like I always think of the Boomerang example where that scene where Strange comes, lands, and makes her first appearance, and Eddie Murphy was Eddie Murphy at the time, so he could get whatever he wanted. But the director was used to working on a smaller budget, and he was like, "Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this," and Eddie was like, "Well, what do you need?" And he's like, "I need a helicopter." Well, we can't do that, so we're going to do this. And he's like, "Why can't we do the helicopter?" Right? And so Eddie gets the helicopter, and they have that grand moment. That's the difference. He could have gotten the could have suggested that she came off the helicopter without the helicopter being there. That's the difference between the low budget and the high
yeah,
budget. That's mean they're not telling the same stories. That the tools you have to work with are going to
yeah,
be slightly different. Anyway,
yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule. I know you're a media professional, and these are times when media professionals are very busy because the world is on fire. So I will let you go. Thanks for making the time to chat with me today, and look forward to seeing what comes forward, going forward in 2026 on the creative side.
Excellent. And if there are any filmmakers out there who want to connect, you can find me mostly on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. Just feel free to reach out, look for Anderson Edghill, and we can start talking. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, and we can see how we can collaborate on projects if they're young filmmakers, people who are interested in film, and you just want to connect with some people who are already in the practicing film, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk. And if you're looking for a mentor, I'm available. We can talk and perhaps collaborate on some future productions.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Anderson.